We're going to finish on a high, aren't we? We certainly are. Quick introduction, then we're going to get this ball on the road. Emad AlAblani, Group Chief Human Resources Officer, National Bank of Kuwait. We've got Emad Al-Ghamdi, Group Chief Human Resources Officer at STC Group. David Bearfield, Director, Office of Human Resources, Bureau for Management Services. Ray Gamal, CHRO, Riyadh Air, Saudi Arabia. And Dr. Christian Schmeichel, SVP and Global Head of People and Culture Services. I like Christian's surname. I'm a Manchester United fan, and probably our greatest ever goalkeeper was Schmeichel, Peter Schmeichel. So I can say Schmeichel, it's an easy one. And also, I call her Jen, but for the formality, let's do Jennifer Moss, who's my co-moderator, by the way. We're doing this together. Jennifer Moss, who is an award-winning author and a global recognized workplace strategist. So Jen is gonna just give you a little overview of this panel, what you can expect from us, and then we're gonna get the show on the road. Jen, take it away.
Thank you so much. It's been so much fun working with Mark, and I am thrilled to be with everyone here in Riyadh. It's been exceptional. I think we all can agree. And we only have so much time together, so I just want to set up this panel. We're really talking about beyond readiness when it comes to HR and how we're going to think about the future of AR and what we're dealing with right now in the present. I wrote this book, Why Are We Here? And the reason why I named it Why Are We Here is because it's an existential question for existential times. I think a lot of people across the workforce have had in the last few years this question of, what am I doing? What is my purpose? Why am I here? And that has been a result of a few things that I have found through my interviews and research, working with Fortune 500 companies and talking to CEOs, but also I interviewed 100 Uber drivers, over 100 Uber drivers. So everyone in between this group. And what I kept running into when people were talking about these major career pivots, they were talking like life is short. They were making these big choices because they felt like something had happened within the pandemic that changed their sense of motivation and purpose. They wanted to leave more legacy. They wanted to do something with impact. The workforce went through this massive disruption where they went from 4% of the global workforce working remotely to 37% of the workforce working remotely. We had, these investments in DEI and well-being, and we felt this sense of agency and purpose, and we were all together on a mission to get through this acute crisis. Today, it's 5 years later, and we're still in a state of polycrisis. There's still a lot of uncertainty. The workforce is feeling extremely burned out, stressed, and we need to address it. And these incredible, talented, brilliant HR leaders are here to talk about what they are doing to motivate a workforce that is feeling a state of stress. We're going to tackle, like what I tackle in the book are these 8 strategies that I believe that we need to be thinking about to work within this novel framework of work as we know it. We're going to focus on hope, purpose, and community, the fundamentals of work, what that looks like. And then we're going to focus on the big business challenges, how we're dealing with massive AI adoption and this acceleration. How are we dealing with different polarized opinions? We have ageism and generational gaps. We're going to talk about flexibility, return to office mandates, what all of that flexibility actually means in 2025 and beyond. And then finally, how do we have a collective vision? What is this going to look like? How do we pull people together right now when we need it the most? So let's really dig into that. I hope you'll all be excited. I cannot wait for us to get started and hear from these folks on the panel that are going to give us terrific insights. And I think Mark's going to kick that off for us.
Let's start with the fulfilling part. When do we stop believing that work could be fulfilling? Emad, if I could start with you, what are you doing, you and your organization, to manage uncertainty and reinforce a sense of hopefulness to increase future readiness for your organization?
Well, first of all, I'm privileged to speak to the audience today about such important subject. And it's very simple. Things that should go with communication. If you have an effective communication channels and you reach out all the workforce with the right message, with the right strategy and direction, and then you tell them and share with them actually what is going on. There is no ambiguity. There is no, let's say, something hidden agenda. You keep them as a part of the team. Your success actually depends on the all workforce success. So if you have an effective communication, then definitely the elimination of uncertainty, as well as the anxiety, high-level anxiety among the people, it would be extremely easy. Also, to create champions, because most of the, let's say, initiative that organization like National Bank of Kuwait, when it's will go live, actually you need change management plan for it. Because you might have a great strategy, but you don't have the implementation plan for it. So when you communicate that and create a real purpose for everybody and share with them the vision, definitely that will be reduced. You cannot eliminate it, but it will be reduced and tuned down.
So, David, I want to ask you a question. We actually had a chance to chat earlier, which was great because, one of the things that we talk about often is just that, this idea that you love what you do, you never work a day in your life is a myth, right? At the UN, you have such purpose-driven individuals. They're intrinsically motivated. But how do you manage them, from potentially, feeling that gap in purpose when there's so much uncertainty in our world right now? Are there different ways of motivating? Are there things that you can do that help them eliminate some of that stress of uncertainty in your organization?
Yeah, well, I work for the United Nations Development Programme. We have 23,000 people in 170 countries. And I think given the places where many of our staff work, uncertainty and volatility and living in sometimes very arduous circumstances kind of goes with the turf. And I think it's what people sign up for. So people are already quite resilient. But what we see in contrast to much of the what you read about the workplace cynicism and burnout is very different in our organization. I came to the UN 7 years ago, and after a long career in the public sector, but I have never worked in an organization where people are so purpose-driven. It's actually difficult to get people to stop. Right. People really believe in what we're doing, and we launched, as part of our HR transformation, a real rebrand of us as an employer under the tagline, Join a Life-Changing Mission. And we really found that resonated with people. Before we started with that, we only had around 13,000 followers on social media. Within 3 years, we've gone over 1 million, and this year, topped over 1 million on LinkedIn alone. We launched a graduate program as a pilot in 50 of our least represented program countries, in developing countries. We just wanted to test the waters and hire 18 people for a couple of years. We had 38,000 applications. So people are really keen to come, despite the fact that it's difficult, despite the fact that there's uncertainty. People are working in difficult places. There are many people, I think there's a huge shift I see in Gen Z and now Gen Alpha compared to when I left college back at the end of the 80s. It was all about money, money, money. That's what people were interested in. There's a massive shift. People want purpose. And I think if people are aligned to the purpose and see that, that really is a great driver, will actually help overcome the anxieties and the difficulties of working in a very fast-changing environment.
But still, and I'm going to steal a stat from Jen's book, a Mercer Trends report suggests that 81% of the global workforce is at risk of burnout in 2025. 81%, that's incredible. So it brings me to you, Emad. You've done studies in burnout, so you're the perfect person to talk to. What have you discovered? What is burnout? What are its attributes, its behaviors? And of course, how are you and how should we tackle it?
Yeah, thank you so much. And I guess that was a good introduction, as uncertainty becomes a way of doing business right now. It's not something new for us. And I guess back to the way that you deal with uncertainty and the outcomes of uncertainty is the way that the company or the organization is dealing with its employees, which we call the culture. An STC, SEC by nature is a very dynamic organization. We work in telco. Telco never sleeps, so we don't sleep. And it's growing bigger and bigger. We're getting into the banking industry, so we're getting here and there. The outcome of that, many uncertainty, and we've noticed something that is around what we have before. We didn't know that it was a burnout, but we discovered that this is what we call a burnout. So the characteristics of a burnout was unknown for us. But then we started to discover something like people who behaviorally and constantly, for an example, come late on certain days. The sick leave, for an example, is sick leave numbers are increasing in certain days. Performance is inconsistent. People are good at 1 year, good at 1 month, then become lower in the following month or the following year. We're starting to put all of these behaviors into one engine, and we have a lot of data. We're at around 30,000 employees in terms of population as a group. And we came up with our own analytics, what we call it the employees heat map. It's not only the burnouts. And out of this, we've started to notice the people who are subject to leave, and with an accuracy of around 70 to 80%, which is a very good accuracy rate. Yeah. But the characteristics of burnouts was very obvious for us. And we started to tackle it as early as possible before people leave or before even they know that they are burned out. We started to communicate those to their managers, and managers started to tackle this by speaking to them. The most obvious thing is that people, they did not know that they are already burnt out. They felt that they're doing good at their job, but they did not know that they're already getting into the feeling of burning out. So I guess it's something that we need to tackle as people working in HR, and it's not something scientific. We want to make it scientific as much as possible so we can deal with it and manage it. But we need to work around things to make sure that people understand it, managers understand it, not only HR, the whole organization understand that it's something that is an outcome of the uncertain world and uncertain circumstances that we're living in.
That's great. That's a really important topic for me. My last book was The Burnout Epidemic, and I was really advocating for change, and it's really exciting to see that people are spending the time measuring it, so I love hearing that. So one of the other things that leads to burnout is loneliness. We've seen this epidemic of loneliness. One of the things that we've recognized is that we're all time-starved. So we have seen increase in meetings, even Teams meetings alone between 2019 and 2020 increased by 252%. And so we talk a lot about remote work and hybrid as being the reason for loneliness and lack of community, but I think it's just that we're working so hard, we're not taking time for each other. So I just really wanted to ask you, Christian, what is one thing that you're doing to bring that social energy back to work? How are we bringing community back to work? And are you noticing this rise in loneliness? And what do you think is causing some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's fair to say that we are living in times of unprecedented change. That's a no-brainer. I think it's also fair to say that the world around us is changing at a breakneck speed. So we need to do something as HR practitioners to provide this kind of support system for our organizations, for our leaders, and for our employees. And what we've seen is that as part of kind of more or less a people agenda refresh, we've put a particular focus on our health, safety, and well-being activities. And in the past, we have very often looked at physical health. In the meantime, we are seeing that this mental health element is becoming more and more important. And we have put a conscious focus on setting up a mindfulness practice. And this is very interesting in the tech space, and I'm working for SAP. A couple of years ago, this was rather put into the category of an esoteric activity. Yeah. In the meantime, a huge demand. We're having 5 or 6 people who are doing nothing else than providing mindfulness trainings for our 100,000 people across the globe in 70 countries. And there's a high demand, a waiting list of 5,000 people, because everyone would like to learn more about it. Everyone would like to strengthen the resilience muscle. Everyone would like to make sure that one is part of this journey. And that's fascinating to see for us. Yeah. And touching on loneliness, I think getting together and kind of working on a joint culture evolution, I think can help also big time. Yeah. Maybe one other example, which is fascinating, as part of our hybrid working model. We have come up with a special program which is called Moments Together On-Site, MOTOs, if you will. So we were asking the entire organization to come up with examples. What matters most for you if you come to the office? What matters most for you if you get together as a team? And what is it? And please document it so that we can share it with everyone else. And I think this kind of bottom-up initiative was helping us big time. So sometimes it's simply important to ask the entire organization, and the organization will help themselves.
I love that. That's excellent.
Can I comment briefly on that? I think what's really important as well is this balance. We've developed a people index in UNDP, which is a measure of inclusion and engagement. And we're just not looking at delivery alone, but these things together. So where we want all of our offices to be is what we call sustainable high performance. So not just chasing for results at the expense of people, because that's only time limited. People will get burnt out. So ensuring that we perform with people, that people feel included and engaged at work. And then we find actually not only is delivery of development aid higher, but it's sustainably higher, and that really works. And I think benefits both the people and the organization.
That is so great to hear. I love hearing this. It looks like it's this hopefulness, I think, for the future of work. One of the things that we have seen, and it's present day, so it's good to see that we're looking at the future, but Gallup is calling this the era of the great detachment. I'm sure you've heard of this. It feels like people are kind of this ennui at work. They're not connected to their purpose and their mission. I'd love to ask you, Ray, just what are you doing to motivate people and re-engage people right now? And have you noticed this sense of detachment? Maybe it's not necessarily in your workforce, but just in general, what are you doing to tackle that sense of ennui?
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer, and good afternoon, everybody. I think at Riyadh Air, being a startup, we are a digitally enabled organization to enable travel, not to be confused with a conventional airline. Our intention is to take the concept of amazing customer service, incredible Saudi hospitality, and in a digital way, create an airline that's never existed anywhere on the planet before. Now, what we find is people are committed to purpose, and the purpose of a startup is very different than the purpose of, say, a more mature organization. We're blessed to have high levels of commitment, high levels of retention, and huge attraction. We've 1.4 million applicants from a standing start of 0 after 12 months from launch. And on the inside, it's about creating that sense of purpose. We have a strong value set, and the traditional way of building an organization, starting with a strong sense of values, really, really works. We use a phrase called hafawa, which is a wonderful word meaning welcome, hospitality in that great Arab tradition. And that word hafawa is what we give to our people when they come. And that is the beginning of their connection with us. And in a startup where we have this incredible task to connect this wonderful city to the world and this wonderful country to the world, people can be forgiven for saying, look, we can come back to these things later. Values are important, but let's do it later. Later means never, and it is a huge mistake. So you do it right, and you do it the first time, and you do it from the beginning. So, for instance, as we onboard people, and we measure it, and everything you measure gets done. And everything that gets done can improve when you're measuring it. So for people on our onboarding, going through our half-hour program, they're scoring it at 96%. For our values that we've launched, again, scoring at 95%. So when you ask people who've come from 60 countries all over the world, when you treble the size of your workforce and you increase your connection with the organization and you measure it, you can prove that you're on the right track. This is a fundamental building block of any organization. And we don't have the sense of detachment. I have visuals of when our first aircraft was coming in past the building, our headquarters, you'll see it there. All of the locals will see our lovely headquarters building right beside the airport, and all of our staff, employees, the teams were at the windows filming the aircraft coming in to land. This wonderful sense of pride. And when we asked the question about being inspired, 91% is the score around being inspired. So people want purpose and they want pride. And David was talking about the younger generations. Younger generations are motivated by pride. Saudis are motivated by huge pride. And the number one theme we get in feedback is proud to be part of building a great nation, a new window to the kingdom, to the world. And this is, in my mind, what motivates and moves us forward.
Nice.
That's great. So now we're going to go into part 2, which I think is really interesting because we're talking about the business challenges now. And what I think we've gained from this is a real sense of understanding what are the barriers to people being purpose-driven, and also helping people to feel that sense of pride and purpose is my big takeaways from this. But I think now we're getting into some of these questions around, AI and really what's happened over the last, I would say the last few years has been this rapid acceleration, and we're seeing on the CEO's list great research that looked at the biggest disruptions, and technology was down the list. It was always a disruption. We always talked about technology, but it moved on this scale from sort of 6 on the list of the biggest disruptions, and then the last 3 years it moved up to number 1. The biggest thing that CEOs are really dealing with is AI, how to integrate it, what is the why of AI, and also this new term that Gallup has come up with, which is called FOBO, the fear of becoming obsolete. And Microsoft Trends and LinkedIn report says that 1 in 2 global workers are feeling AI anxiety right now. They don't really know what the plan is. I think, one of the other things that we're starting to wonder is the promise of AI. What is it actually, is it actually delivering on the promise? And one of the promises is that it's supposed to save time and efficiency, but does that actually mean that we're getting our time back? It's supposed to be focused on upskilling and reskilling so we can go from, data gathering to actually being someone that can deliver on insights. I think it's really important for us to think about AI and how it's going to fit into our HR strategies. And our panelists are going to talk a little bit more about that right now and how they are tackling this big conversation around the unknown of AI.
So Christian, to you then, has the promise of AI been a lie, as Jen alludes to? Do you think that it's delivering on its promise, or did we maybe walk too fast, move too fast to communicate its value?
Well, first of all, I say that AI is certainly a game changer. I think from probably everyone's perspective here in the room. What is interesting is, from my personal point of view, AI on the short term is probably a little bit overhyped. Over the long term, it's still completely underestimated. I feel that we're just scratching the surface because we're just learning what this may be all about, and therefore I feel it's too early to tell. But what I can tell you already now is, in the HR space, this is probably the silver bullet many of us have been waiting for quite some time, because it's hopefully helping us to, I don't know, drive a completely different level of operational excellence. Just think of shared service centers, just think of data analysis and all of that. You can really, really drive efficiency and operational excellence, and thereby you can free up time that you can reinvest into employee experiences. So I think we have been all struggling, right, to find that time, that capacity to focus on what matters most, people. And I think AI will help us big time on that front. And of course, now speaking on behalf of SAP, this is of course a big lever for us as well. So internally, we're trying to showcase what we do. And it's fascinating. I was just coming across an employee engagement survey, and I think some of you mentioned this. Usually you get around about 35,000 open comments in such a survey. It takes maybe a team 2 weeks to analyze all of this. Now with AI, you do a prompt. After half an hour, you have probably a perfect analysis of these 35,000 comments. And then you can talk about it, you can think about it, you can do something with that. So I think that's a completely different way of working with these kind of data fields and making sure that we can really deliver value for our people. And I think that's exciting as an HR practitioner. And looking here at what's happening right in Saudi here with this human capability initiative, this is what we need. We need to have time for people to grow. I think this is what this is all about.
Yeah.
I love that you're talking about it specifically from an HR strategy. I think that's really important in how we've embedded AI. Ray, would you say that there's anything that you've built in that you're using specifically from an HR strategy where AI is being implemented, and how are you doing that?
Yeah, look, I'm laughing a little bit inside about, as a dinosaur, I'll call myself, looking at AI. I remember back to when I worked for Intel Corporation years ago, and the internet was launched. Yeah. And the reaction, and this is Intel Corporation, the chip manufacturer, leading technology firm, and they restricted the use of the internet to all employees on the basis that it would be a distraction. And I think we're at a point with AI similar, because it's a similar revolution. And I think we look back at the times we were questioning, was it the right thing, and smile a little bit, because the same way we smile a bit about the internet today, it becomes part of who we are. And AI is here to stay and here to grow. It is a game changer of huge proportions. And the wonderful thing is that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is one of the most tech-literate populations on the planet. The usage of iOS is the highest per capita anywhere in the world here in Saudi. And the young people, 75% of them under the age of 35, engage technology. And I think they smile a bit at dinosaurs like myself questioning AI, because it's just the way it's going to be. In Riyadh Air, a digitally enabled organization, AI will be at the forefront. But AI does not mean no people. AI means people doing different things. People doing the real value-added people things, engaging with other people. And when you have a lot of tasks that no longer need to be handled by people, those people can do a lot more rewarding things, a lot more beneficial things, and a lot more customer-facing skills that will make a difference, both to the individual team member, but also to our customers. So we see it as a huge opportunity. And we're in a very lucky point in time where we're starting an incredible hiring ramp, and we know what the technology can do, and we build it in. And we're building it into services. If you can imagine being at an airport, one of the biggest challenges you have is the movement of information around that for you as a customer. You're standing in front of a counter, and an agent doesn't have the information to help you. And it's not their fault. They've been put there without the information to help you. You may be with your family. You may be pressured, stressed, and you're trying to figure out what you do next. AI is an incredible tool to bring that information to the person, and that's linked to empowerment. Without that information, the person can't be empowered. Without AI, the quickest, swiftest way to get it to them is to use these tools. You've all been there when the phone is rung, and you're standing there, they're ringing, nobody's answering on the other side, and they hang up. And you're frustrated. Information movement is key. When it comes to HR, you have all of these processes that are easily automated, and our people can move up and engage in other activities, wonderful activities, engaging the business. To me, it empowers people, and it allows people to grow and develop.
Nicely said, allows people to grow and develop. Emad, for you, AI is actually a product.
Yep.
So you're perfectly placed to tell us how you're making your employees AI ready.
Yep, yep. So allow me before I answer this, I just want to remind everyone that 10 years ago, the trend was digitization. 5 years later was advanced analytics. And now we have artificial intelligence. And I guess the story is not going to be ending here. And I guess it's going to be evolving more and more. We're going to be having a lot of, let's say, development when it comes to the technology. And the message here is that we need to be ready for that change. And I guess everything that we have talked about here was about the culture that we want to make for the company and for our employees to be ready for any change, especially around technology. A fact of STC being a technology company pushed us 10 years ago to start by putting the mindset and instilling the mindset of digitization in every corner of STC, not only in the people who are working in the core business, but even in HR, even in finance, even in procurement or shared services, because digitization was a necessity at that time and it will remain necessary for any business to grow. And I see the same thing that happened with digitization, also advanced analytics will continue to work with artificial intelligence. So we had made sure that at the glance, at the beginning of the trend of advanced analytics and also artificial intelligence, we started, and thanks to our academy, started to do what we call how can we make our employees ready for this change. Not because it's a core business, but we know that this is a huge disruption of the way that we do business in every corner of SCC. And when this thing happened, ChatGPT and the other stuff and Gen AI coming in, I guess, I cannot just claim, but I guess our employees were more ready than others because they were already familiar with the types and likes of artificial intelligence. And the key word here is not to make them ready for only artificial intelligence, but for any disruption that might happen coming out of technology. Because, again, artificial intelligence is not the end of the story. Things will come up, and we're going to see things accelerating and even in a faster manner in a way that we cannot imagine. And I hope that we can cope with artificial intelligence right now because it's moving so fast in a way that we need to move faster, at least, or otherwise people will be living in an anxiety. Our uncertainty will be up high in the sky, and we need to make sure that our people are ready. So it's a many way of doing it, but I go back to culture, the way that we deal with our employees, making them ready for the changes that are happening in the technology, not only for artificial intelligence, but for anything else.
That's great. So we want to talk a little bit about this new, I want to say it's a new old term, but we're talking about flexibility. You know, in 2019, if we had summer Fridays off, it would be considered the greatest place to work. Here today, 2025, flexibility is a right, not a perk. There's an expectation around flexibility, and people are making big life choices, career pivots to be able to have flexibility. But we've really focused on flexibility as only being about where. It's like these three questions around flexibility. Are you remote? Are you hybrid? Are you in person? But flexibility can mean so many different things, especially because 60% of our workforce is remote enabled, is not remote enabled. So we need to be thinking about that. We need to be thinking about what people do, with whom they do it with, where they're doing it is part of the question, but not all the question. And so, you know, I really want to talk to Emad about this. If you could tell me kind of what you've been considering within your organization about what flexibility looks like with a diverse workforce, how are you handling this question? Is it Emad? Emad, yes.
Emad.
Emad?
Well,
okay, sorry. Yeah,
thank you so much. MBK actually operates on 13 countries across the globe, starting from New York, ending to Shanghai. And I think every geographical location requires solutions that really adapt with the competition there, as well as to be an attractive employer. So what works for New York, London, and Geneva and Paris doesn't work with GCC region. And what's worked for the Far East definitely will never work in the Western area. So we always actually touch base with the best researchers, that whether it's from Gallup or Gartner and so on, and try to design a culture. Although we have let's say a unified culture, but there is definitely subcultures that really strengthen the whole group in a one entity, if I may say. So looking to the specialty, or let's say each area that requires special treatment, we provide them with that flexibility. So flexibility, definitely, it's a general term, but it has a different type or natures as well.
That's excellent.
Just a point maybe on that, if I could. I don't think we talk enough about the psychological contract with people as opposed to the piece of paper. I would ask the audience how often they've waved their contract around in the office. And if you have, it's probably a poor reflection on the culture that you're in. We don't wave a piece of paper around. To me, it's the psychological contract of not putting the right to flexibility in a contract, but having the person feeling they have the right to flexibility if it's the right thing to do. And if the employee can ask and a company views it as the right thing to do, then it should be supported. And that psychological contract shouldn't be an irrefutable right. It should feel like the right thing to do.
Yep.
And we just don't have enough of that common sense, in my view.
You're absolutely right. We have a social contract, not a transactional contract with people today. It's very different.
Can I build on that? I completely agree with that. And I think what we see is, in a way, the move towards more flexible working, about do I work in the office or at home, is actually a fault line, and perhaps really about something different.
Yeah.
And it's about what's the management style and the leadership style. And I think there you see this sharp divide in reality between the old school command and control. I want to see what you're doing. I don't trust you.
Yep.
To actually, I'm empowering you. And to link back to the discussion about burnout, actually, I think what makes people burnt out is not necessarily the hours that they're working. It's people working for organizations they don't believe in,
Yeah.
for people that don't trust them.
Yes.
And that's the real problem. And if people feel empowered and trusted and they believe in the purpose, actually you have much less burnout, because actually it's that misalignment between what people feel inside and what they're giving.
Jen, because we've only got a couple of minutes, why don't you, with your brilliant brain, come up with a quick fire round which everyone can answer, that wraps up this excellent discussion with a lovely bow and sends you all to our final speaker.
I'd love to find out what you think right now, if we're thinking of beyond readiness. What is the most important future skill that everybody that's just either looking for a career pivot or they're just entering the workforce, what is that skill that you think is most important for the future of
And
work
you've got
right now?
20 seconds each. Look at the timer, 20 seconds each. Go.
Shall I start?
Yeah, let's go round.
I think agility, adaptability, and flexibility.
Oh, good one.
Brilliant.
I echo that. They're not going to be technical ones. They're going to be all behavioral ones. And I really echo what Emad mentioned.
I think the most important thing is we want people that have a learning mindset.
Emotional intelligence. I think the future is not about AI and not about technology, but about people, and emotional intelligence will be the game changer.
Yeah.
And for me, it's a combination of everything that was said. I think we need to learn how to learn, and I think we need to see, for example, how all of these things club together, because this is, I think, what makes us humans then stand out and be successful for the future.
Yeah, continuous learning. Continuous learning is very much needed, yeah.
Yeah, and Jen, you are worthy of giving your final thoughts and answer your own question.
I feel like these brilliant insights are exactly what I would say too. It is about emotional intelligence. It's about feeling like you want to be where you are. You have the answer to why are we here. That's what I think that you need to go into work thinking with that kind of clarity.
Yeah. I want to give our panel a massive, massive round of applause. What a fantastic closing town hall. Thank you so much. Right.